Pasha Paroh, YNet7, thank you for tuning. Got the man, the myth, the legend, VleeV, back with us. Please introduce yourself.
VleeV, VLEEV, that's me. Anyway, yeah, I shake my head. It's been a long day. It's been a non-musical day that's music related, but we're good. Um,
Always a
Imagine,
perfect day, so I appreciate
there
that.
you
Look,
go.
this is what we're gonna get into today. Imagination and music. I
Works for
appreciate you
me.
being here. I appreciate you being here, bringing
Thank
the
you.
expertise, the observation, the oversight, the intellectual conversation.
I'll
Because
try to be intellectual.
ah,
Well, you know,
naturals.
imagination is emotion, and emotion is it's chaotic at times, and it doesn't have much to do with professionalism. Professionalism is a little more structured and disciplined and didactic, whereas emotion is like a wildfire sometimes. So I'll try to keep it down. I've got a daughter also. She's traveling to
Don't
Charlotte.
keep it down. Go. Let it go
Let
there.
it go. Okay. All right. I'll let it rip. Being who I am, I'm very sensitive and emotional. I'm very much of an empath. And in this being an empath, being able to feel vibrations from what we call the ether or the ether, it's a matter of being open and willing and submitting yourself to it. For me, I didn't realize my ritual for creating music was just me tapping into something that was bigger than me, something that was a little more or less misunderstood. I don't want to religiousize it. It is a spiritual thing. Smokey Robinson made a quote about he gets his music from God, and I'd like to go there and pretty much say that, but I don't like to relegate a description to the supreme creator. In the Hebrew language, it really isn't a word God. They created it. And in the sense of the early Gnostics, they didn't, a word, God is a man-made word, because it's the best we could do. But getting back to it, Smokey was onto something. And it's a matter of, for me, the music, it looks like it's coming from me, but it comes through me. So I submit myself pretty much basically, I lay my feelings out there to feel it. And sometimes I just sit down to the keyboard and let my hands just hit, and we don't know what's really going to happen and come out. Right now I have my keyboard set to percussion, orchestral percussion, so it's those different sounds, but yeah, that's a percussion thing. But getting to it, it's still a matter of funneling or channeling your feelings in relation to what's out there, because it's analogous, it's everything. So you have to kind of pull and let it filter through how you're feeling. So as a composer for film or a composer for visual image, visual media, what I tend to do from scene to scene is feel those visual, physical emotions through the physical acting outs in the film. And then I'm pulling from the ether to get the sounds that actually make it happen. That's how the melodies come in. And when it's not visual media, it's like any song, you have lyrics or a hook that dictates what it's about. So
So
this,
imagination, when we go to etymology, it's exactly what you're describing. It's a form, an image
right,
of, it says a picture in one's mind.
right,
It also says to picture yourself or picture oneself or imagine. So
right,
that speaks of it being a flow through and not us being the direct source of, like,
right,
which is why people aligned in the same frequency cluster together or have the same tendencies when they can even be scattered across the globe. So do you think empath and music has a strong correlation and bond for that reason?
Yes. And this is what they call finding your audience. You know, you first you find your audience, but that's kind of what comes first, the cart or the horse or the chicken or the egg. And I found my art first. And then if somebody liked it, great. I was never really one for gaining an audience. You know, someone said, as a matter of fact, he's an old friend. He said, I'm not interested in being famous anymore. And I said, well, it's kind of late for that because we're all on social media. So one way or another, we're famous to somebody. We're infamous or famous. But what happens, like I said, what for me, it starts out and it is this pulling from the ether. So my ego is totally detached. If somebody says it's great, I take it with a grain of salt. If somebody says it stinks, I take it with a grain of salt because it came from someplace and I filtered it into it. Now, when a director or producer says it stinks, I have a problem because that's cutting close to me not getting my check. So I'm not. I want to move
Hey,
on to
fix
the
your light,
next
V.
scene. Huh?
Fix your light. There you go.
Oh, you know what? I forgot. Sorry. Uh, Here we go. Was that it? That's it. How's that? No?
Nah, there you go.
There
That's
you
it
go.
right there.
There we go.
What is?
Okay, sorry.
Nah, it's all good.
Yeah, so yeah, getting back to it, it's my I tend to take my ego and keep my ego out of it by first it's known, it's something else, it's someone else, it's something else, not someone else. And it's coming through me. Now, what's it gonna be for, you know? That's
Right.
the whole thought. Yeah, yeah.
So electricity flows. Trauma. I've been doing some other conversations and some studies and some research. Trauma has an effect
Yes.
on imagination.
Yes.
And music can be used to manage trauma. Speak on that.
Okay. Now, when you're talking therapy or therapeutic uses, yeah, it's a matter of tuning into a certain frequency to adjust, control, or even negate those frequencies that are associated with the trauma. Okay. And in the case, just for the sake of the word trauma, let's just say everybody is traumatized to a certain level. This is why we have entertainment to take you out of that particular feeling or that level of trauma and bring you into a more pleasurable experience, or at least work through the trauma by presenting you with an even greater trauma. You know, that's what horror movies tend to do. And we know that it's nothing going to really hurt us but our psyche. And it's a good scam. By the time you come out of it, you may have even faced your traumas in a cathartic sense, you know, that you worked through it and you were able to have a breakthrough on how you felt watching those movies. Hence why romance and danger and not danger, action movies, the early action movies were war movies and the hero always rode in on the white horse and that whole 9 yards. We know about that, and scooped up the female in his arm, and he won. He kissed her, and that was that. Everybody was happy. We know life doesn't really work that way for everybody. Not really much for too many people, but when it comes to the creation of music, you know, it's a level of, you have an idea, your imagination, you're an imagician, and in this you're manipulating frequencies, and your imagination has a certain point. For me, it has a certain point, and I kind of stick it out there to see what sticks to it. I don't know what is happening with my light, why it does that, but let me see here.
You know what? In the background, dim your background light
Yeah,
on
I
your
think I know what it
left
is.
shoulder.
I know what it is.
But go ahead, keep going. We can hear you.
Yeah, so getting back to it, it's a matter of for me,
There you
it's a
go.
matter
That's
of
better.
let's see. Can I do this? Yeah, how's that?
That's better. Yeah, that's
That's
right.
much better. Okay. For me, if I'm just making a song and it's collaboration, my imagination matched up with everybody's imagination. We're still all plugged into the imagination pool, or
Mm-hmm.
the akashic, or the ether or ether. It's something above us, I ain't self, or whatever you want to call it. And it's still a matter of the collaboration goes but so far, and then it's a grand collaboration by the time you all get a hold of it, and we have by the time we all get a hold of it, and we have an actual idea, and we work. When I'm working with moving image and moving media, it's a one-on-one. After I take the blueprint from the director or the producer, and then I'm off to the races with this melody, this grand melody that has to be translated to help tell the story. So yeah, the imagination has a great deal to do with it. The imagination, it it's catalyzed and it's fueled by someone, and you have to take it, and your responsibility with your imagination you have to remember that it's not all about you.
That's exactly what I was gonna ask you next, is because if this is, that's why they call it tunes, like you're tuning something, you know what I mean?
Right,
Just like the guitar is tuned, you can tune the frequency or the aura of the people, the city, the nation, etc., through great music. Um, so we spoke about the craft of the composer, and I wanted you to also elaborate on, please, the view of the listener, because now they can maybe see why they can use it as like to be conscious and be aware of what they're listening to,
right,
for either prevention of poison or the awareness of healing, right?
right, absolutely right. Well,
Fix your lens there and go ahead, keep talking to us.
oh my, I
Something
see what's
blocking
going
you.
on. I see what's going on.
Yeah,
I
there
see
you
what's
go.
going on.
All right, that's great.
Yeah. Um. Okay. Yeah. That sounds heavier than it actually is. Okay. As far as the listener is concerned, they're the most important person, and this is where the audience is important, and this is where finding your audience, finding your art, finding your audience, pleasing your audience. Well, it starts with me pleasing the main person, the executive producer, director, the producers of the project. And this is where they want the project to go. This is what they wanted to do
Mhm.
for the listener, for the viewer, for the person that it's aimed for, the audience. So it's it's a weird dance because my imagination is great, but then I have my orchestrator whose imagination has to take it to an even another level. So after the level they're taking it to breaks it down from a simple melody, chord and bass, and a melody, and giving it voices in an 80 to a 108 piece orchestra. And that's when things can become more refined, they can become more lush. They can become maybe even in a minimalist level where it's just a few instruments. Can become more defined for the listener, so
Mm.
that you can't make any mistake about what's really going on here or what feelings you're supposed to get. Um, so yeah, to kind of backpedal on that, it still comes back to you have to have an imagination, and as a child, I had a grand imagination. And I think it shows in the music, my imagination allowed me to cut 170 fresh cinema ready tracks in less than 18 months.
Where can they find those at?
It's sound on my SoundCloud, soundcloud.com/ Vincent dash Levy, Levy dash Bryant, Bryant.
So
Yeah.
V, we talked
Or
about,
just Google VleeV. You'll get
yeah,
everything.
yeah. We, thank you for sharing that. So we
Thank
talked
you.
about how the tuning is gonna be the composer to know what they're tuning, and then the listener to know how they want to be tuned. So it's a balance there. And we were speaking on the channel about authentic, right? And when I'm looking at this, interference can be removed with music, whether that's relationships or connections with oneself. You can affect people's energy levels. Motivation can be had through music and help heal people with, like you said, relationships and even their own self-esteem. So that directly connects to when you're speaking about your relationship with the director and being the composer for their cinematic production, because that's their imagination, which again is an image or picture of their mind in their mind.
Right.
So that kind of gives you a limitation of your imagination to make sure it fits in or is authentic in the production of the bigger picture that it's a part of.
Right. Here's how I keep from feeling that way. I never feel limited because I go in it with no ego. It is their vision, it is their imagination. I'm aiding their imagination with my imagination to a certain level. And yeah, I do have to have blinders on and stay within that realm, stay within those guidelines or those borders. And I have to still pull and filter from not only what they want, but what I'm hearing to help represent that. It's always trial and error until it sticks. It's not, spaghetti's not done until it's one sticks to the wall and then it's ready. That's one way. But for me, I'm gonna always, sometimes it can be you're bothering the director if you don't get it right. This is why spotting sessions are important, where we sit there and we talk about what they want in this scene that we are watching, everything they want in the scene, and how does the music relate to that if music is there. Sometimes I go, you don't need music. You need sound design, or you need nothing, silence, or you need the particular thing that identifies the character with their particular thing that is sound, and let me write something to that. And there are many ways, but it's still about helping tell a story. And this is where you get to sound original and different than composers who just make these great, wonderful, what I call sweeping symphonic themes that really generally don't have anything to do with the scene, except for if the scene is beautiful, then the beautiful music works. But if the scene has any complex human feelings in it and is conveying a message, you have to be malleable. You have to be able to tailor make it, fit it, and customize it to be what it is. And that's not always necessarily commercial music as we know it. It's avant-garde. It's what's the word? It's organic. It's organic.
Bespoke.
So you can't spray something on it. You can't make it cookie cutter. No, it's organic. It's actually fitting. It's mise en scene, which is the French term for everything that belongs in the scene. So it goes for music as well. So I do have certain boundaries, but I don't let those boundaries bother me because it's about the director's vision. It's not about me. Now, if I'm making a particular, there are several pieces on my SoundCloud I just made without any visual stimulation at all. It's just purely my imagination. And it may not be any further than me imagining I'm in a blues band. So I make a blues piece and you got the drummer and he's playing this, 12 bar, beat. And that's, the bass player is following along, and the keyboard the piano's doing what a piano should do in a blues band. Same thing for a jazz trio. Same thing for electric jazz or funk or any of those things. Coming from a band background, a rhythm section background, that is keyboards, bass, drums, and guitar. That's a rhythm section. And having grown up listening to not only my dad's band, but some of the best bands in the world that could pull this stuff off. No name dropping, just great music from three or four guys. So yeah, it's imagination is very, very, very important. You don't have an imagination, you can't even begin to imagine understanding what the director is asking for, or anybody for that matter. You may be asked to play a song at a wedding. You may be the wedding singer, and you want to know why this song is special to the couple. So you need to do something in that regard to make the song special when you perform it at their wedding. See, something as simple as that. I was asked to sing a cappella at a friend's father's funeral, and it was Danny Boy, which is an old Irish dirge. It can be, and so I had to make it more. I made it more Southern Afro American gospel with the Irish bend on it. If you can imagine that.
There go that word again.
Huh?
So there go that word again. Imagine.
Imagine, yeah. And I had to have my imagination because I knew this man. I liked him, and I knew what he was about. I got to learn from his friends who were there, a bunch of old Irish Freemasons, and they loved it. His people, his family, his son, and his daughter-in-law, and his family, they just loved it. I was scared. I was, because these are my friends, and I'm like, so, but once I just relaxed and let it loose, I was, in the choir in my mother's AME church.
There you go.
And it was going, dude, and they loved it. And I said all that to say the imagination has a lot to do with it. I know the song, I know it well, so I have to own it in a certain way where I can serve it to the people. The funeral's not the happiest place, but you're going to make it in such where the joy and the celebration of this person's life through the lyrics and the melody, the frequencies, the melody. So yeah. The imagination is highly important. Yep.
So what do you think? It sounded like a lot of people they're afraid of bringing something new. They're afraid of utilizing their imagination because it's genuine.
Yep.
And
it's original.
Right. And they have their concerns of acceptance, right?
Right.
Initially. And it sounded like for you, it was no different. And as an encouragement factor for people out there, like you said, you was nervous in the beginning, but you quickly find yourself, oh man, it's just another day at the office.
There you go. That's exactly the way I felt too. I said, oh, these are my friends. This is so-and-so. Okay, wait a minute. Hold on. I don't, to some, it was so beautiful. It moved them to tears. There was tears already, but it was just, I was told, man, my dad he's loving that. Okay, great. You know what I mean? So now, yeah, the imagination, once again. And some people say, wait a minute, you're letting your imagination carry you away. Well, what is the carrying away? Yeah, it happens.
What's wrong with that?
Exactly. But now here's what's wrong. You made a left and they were expecting you to make a right. Yeah. So you got carried away. I couldn't keep up with, they couldn't keep up with me. Well, you're supposed to hang on. That's what the entertainment, the value is all really about, So I don't expect a person, when a person zigs, I don't zag. I'm enjoying your performance. I'm enjoying everything about your performance. But everybody nowadays is an expert and a critic, The internet is great. It's turned everybody into experts about everything.
Yeah.
For me, it's allowed me to expand my imagination.
Bonus.
Not so much my knowledge. Because, I was a reader, I'm still a reader. What am I reading? I'm reading the internet.
Right. Because it's the modern day library.
It totally is, man. And
see, when people remember that, look, here's a good example of what people used to be like, hey, where'd you get that on the internet? Where you hear that on the internet? And
exactly.
I used to tell them this. I tell them this. Back in the day, when you go to the library, there was a fiction section and a nonfiction
and
section.
nonfiction.
Just like the internet, it's up to the
You got it.
researcher to
That's
have a
right.
good.
And just because they printed it doesn't make it true. So that still, you still have a responsibility to be
Exactly.
intelligent. Okay.
Use your imagination.
Use your imagination. No. Anyway, that's it.
Awesome, awesome. So where do you think the industry is going to go next? When it comes to this dance, what's next for the extension of the imagination in these productions?
My imagination hasn't touched on that yet, so I don't know. But I'll tell you this much. The sound of music for visual image, it's taking a change right now, but it's not going to. I I think I would like to think it's paralleling with the change that's already happening in entertainment, movies, film, animation, episodic TV.
Mm-hmm.
The medium of sharing and distribution has changed drastically. Everything's on these cell phones, which is great. There's Netflix and all the others that are streaming, which is awesome. But I think it's going to be up to the youth that are doing this now. My 28-year-old son is so gifted. He could do it all. And he has this thing about 3 to 5 minute episodes and broadcasting something on that level and not cutting it all into an hour and then cutting it up into 5 minutes. He means actual content packed 3 to 5 minute vignettes,
Mm-hmm.
series. I'm sorry, episodes that will be in a series for a particular season or a particular sitting. You know, so, and this is
So
good for the person who's got, they're getting ready for work in the morning. They want to see an episode of something, or they're just waking up, or they're just going to sleep. They want to watch an episode of something that lasts 3 minutes. Good. They came to a fulfillment. Now they can watch the next episode. I don't know how it's going to be done, but they know. The MTV
right.
generation came in and taught advertising a lot because they had the shortest memory span. So music videos had little 5 and 7 minute segments piled up and packed into a 3.5 minute song. And that's where they became a huge hit because these kids have I say these kids, this generation has no tolerance for sitting and waiting. Yep.
They, I think you make a great point when you talk about the attention span.
Yep.
However,
Thank you.
again, here's the mirror issue. Here's the reflection of the coin, where people think it's the attention span of the people, right? Or is it that the environment has molded and created that attention span because of the dynamics of society that they're forced into to imagine themselves in.
It's a
So
good
this is
point.
why the people don't have time. We got about 8 minutes left. So with they don't have time, in general, people don't have time. They're trying to make $1, trying to pay the rent. They're trying to spend time with their family. You don't have time left, right? For most
Wow.
people.
That's
So
right.
is it actually that the attention span is short, or the value of your imagination has been decreased from the system that we're in?
That's a very good point. And that brings back to the factor of entertainment being used as a weapon of control.
Hmm.
So it's when you're coming from controlling the viewer beyond just entertaining them, yeah, you're absolutely right. But when it comes to art for the sake of art and enjoying art, because nobody goes, I've never been to the Museum of Natural History and Art and looked at a painting and said, I wish they had made, and look at the women. None of them are Twiggies. They're all, they all look like real women, especially back in those days. That was a sexy woman, the voluptuous one with the big belly and the fat legs, hips. That was a
Yeah, it was
woman.
fed.
Yeah, they were fed and they were women. They did not look like these. But anyway, that's one point. I don't want to digress into that.
Well, you make a good point too. Like when they made those paintings, it was
Mhm.
in a time period where imagination was valued.
Oh
So
yeah.
if painting was the medium, you had to have
Yeah.
time to sit
Yep.
there and immerse yourself in it.
That's right.
No, nobody
Time.
said, "Oh, I gotta make this painting
Right.
a quarter the size to give them less to look at because they're not gonna have enough time."
Not gonna have enough time. Right. Or even with the medium that we use, even with the tools we use with my digital audio workstation, in 20 to 25 minutes, I can have a semi-symphonic fleshed out mock-up of showing of what I want. Easy. I just lay out the piano, then I bring the piano down into a few tracks and I change the sounds, and then I edit out certain notes for that particular sound. So I've got strings and woodwinds and percussion, and now I've got something for that particular 10 to 12 seconds of something happening.
Mm. And
Yeah.
those 10 to 12 seconds may take hours.
It can take hours, but it'll take me just minutes to take and flesh out the idea. Now, after I tweak it and do this and do that and exchange and really orchestrate it, then when you hear it finished, no, it didn't take minutes. It took me minutes to get the idea down. It took me a few hours to get it to what we call a finished product of something to promote.
So
Yep.
speaking about finished products, V, give you some time here. You do scores, you do sound design, you can lay down everything a filmmaker needs audio to help tie together that emotion and authenticate the
Absolutely.
production.
Absolutely.
Give so let's go to the big leagues with it, right?
Okay.
Break down the value of sound design and scoring, the value in cost and currency, and both time to produce for just 1 minute of like a
Okay.
major motion
What
picture.
I charge is $250 for each minute of finished music. Like you said, it may take me an hour, few hours, but after I get it to a finished point and it's 1 minute, that's $250. Now, sound design, same deal. And the difference with sound design and why it can be less complicated is because, or it could be even more tedious, but less complicated. We're going to take certain sounds or samples, or even go and record it with a microphone in the field for sounds to identify a mood or a particular character. The lead character as the protagonist, and then the lead character as the bad guy, the antagonist. So they're going to have two separate sounds that identify them. Then the clutch or the challenge for the antagonist from the protagonist, and then the resolution of the climax or the clutch. And then it's a matter of just overall. So now the difference is we're not using instruments, we're using a broad spectrum of everything. Could be anything, the way of the shuffle of the way a person walks, the way their keys hang or they jingle jangle, a whistle that's around their neck because it's a coach, or the car horn, the way the car horn sounds because this particular character identifies with his car, the way it rumbles and roars, that kind of stuff.
So you're
I'm
gonna
sorry. Go ahead.
you're gonna be able to produce the Tyler Perry level, the Tarantino level
Oh yeah.
imagination connection of sound and video.
Oh,
Let them know what that would cost on a Tyler Perry film or on a
that's a little
Tarantino
different.
film.
So
Let them know the
here's the
value
big
that you're able, that what it would cost them if they went that route with it.
here's the big difference. Me doing mock-ups is always going to be less expensive. To hire a real orchestra, a union orchestra for a film in the United States is upwards of $100,000. Now, if I hired an orchestra overseas, there would be a fraction of that cost, somewhere in the neighborhood of 20,000 at the most, and they would rehearse half the day and spend the other half of the day recording the piece and several pieces that went with it or any idea that went with it, and they would do it proficiently. The European players, they've gotten their instrument at a much younger age with a tradition behind them. They may be third, fourth, or even fifth generation performer, especially the stringed instrument players, and then the woodwinds next and brass. But the bottom line is a bigger budget film is going to give you a bigger bang. You can get a guy who's going to mix it and master it better. You can get the studios that are going to record it better at a higher, I have a team. I have a recording guy and a mix guy, two separate recording engineers. One's a mixer, they can both do their jobs together, but separately is good. They can pay attention. I have a orchestrator. He's a guy, he's a person, not necessarily a guy, but he's the person that takes the music ideas. I send him simple piano stuff and he writes it out for orchestra. I have this awesome, talented woman. I'm not going to drop her name, but she is my maestro or maestra. I don't like to genderize, but she is a powerhouse and she conducts the orchestra. So she's got to be close to my music, close to the engineer who's going to be recording and mixing it. They're separate engineers. She's got to be close with the orchestrator. So she's a pivotal point because she's going to be given the truck with my goods on it to deliver it to the destination or to the audience. And the interpretation and the delivery of the performance is totally under her realm. And this person I have she's awesome.
So you got a high caliber team. We got a
Yes,
minute
I
left
do.
here. I wanna bring it to a
Yes.
close. So the value of what you're able to deliver for those that need your services is gonna be on the level where people are spending hundreds of thousands of dollars to do on a larger
Yes.
scale, but you're gonna be able to give them the same thing, very similar in a more efficient production, very
Oh
much
yeah.
more intimate setting and relation,
Oh
because
yeah.
that's how much, when you look at those people spending hundreds and thousands of millions of dollars on your imagination, I think that it encourages people that if people are spending that much on their imagination for them, that they need to spend some time, at least some time on their own themselves. Pasha
That's right.
Paroh, YN7, VleeV, say bye to the people.
All right. VleeV.
Thank you for tuning.
Thank you. Thank you. Good night.